Alright, welcome to the totally professional workshop of SAABNATIC. Not the biggest brag, but I do have a garage, which is great. We're going to start on the spark plugs. The one thing that I actually am a bit more worried about in comparison to doing the serpentine belt or, for example, the MAF or mass airflow sensor cleaning, which I'm going to do as well. We're going to handle 3 parts: spark plugs, air filter, or 4 air filter, spark plugs, the mass airflow sensor, do a clean, and then the serpentine belt or the dry belt hidden on the side. First off, we have to take off the direct ignition cassette, which is just simply for T30 screws. I recommend using a ratchet. I'm going to be also using an impact drill on the weakest power. By the way, I do recommend starting up the car, drive it a little bit, but not enough that you're gonna burn yourself on the engine cover. But by essentially warming up the car, the metal will slightly expand, like millimeters basically, and that will make the spark plugs will get loose, or at least not get as stuck in the engine block. So we can prevent some catastrophic failures. But we are going to use some W40 down the holes after taking off this cover. But simply 4 T30 screws. Place them a place where you will not lose them. I will place them here, just for my own sanity. And then we can lift off the cassette. Be mindful, there is a connector on the right side, so you have to do a slight motion. Now we have to simply lift off this connector. Those are a bit stuck sometimes, so there's a small gap for a screwdriver, which I luckily do have right here. And we're just going to be careful and side to side motion. There, you didn't see, but simply in here and just wiggle a bit. Then you can simultaneously pull this up and pull out. So after you just pull further, it will hop off the connector and you can just remove it. There you got the cassette. Place this somewhere safe. We don't want anything down the connectors. So I will just follow suit. I place them where the screws are. Now we get to the fun part, which is the spark plugs, which are not as deep as I thought. Great. By the way, you can see some red RTV right there. I have once actually done the gasket on the valve cover, because I actually had to do I thought I had to do on the 9.5s, not the 9.3, but the B235R engines. They are common to have the headlock bolts loosen up because did something very irrational and put oil or something a bit slippery on the thread of the screws, and when I tighten it would lift up or loosen during driving, which meant that around this part of the engine you would get a almost 9% leak, a coolant leak. So I've already done that, but we're gonna do on the 9.5 on Phoenix, Project Phoenix soon. But for now we're just gonna focus on spark plugs on the 9.3. Well, these are the 4 cylinders, the 4 spark plugs. They have been in my car around for 40,000 kilometers, which is a lot, well overdue. And they probably have gotten a bit stuck on the threads. And so to make sure we don't actually break anyone off in them, we're just going to use a very basic WD-40, not a lot, and just down on the threads. Then we're going to, where the spark plugs are. By the way, I have to get a spark plug pipe. The original OEM spark plugs for the B205 engines, E engine specifically, is the NGK BCPR 6ES-11. These are what the manual specifically says. We'll even show a later show a page in the manual book. And you don't want to buy any like cheapo. If you don't have the money, just do your best. But while I am a broke student, college student or university student as it is, the one thing I don't want to waste a little money on are the spark plugs. They do affect reliability, the emissions, and the fuel economy. So 4 of these. By the way, look how they came. Packaging isn't that bad, but I did get a bit startled when I saw the way it was handled. Came all the way from northern Norway. So this is a actual spark plug pipe. It has a magnet inside, which means you don't have to do the trick with a glove or have a rubber like insert that will mount to the plug. So that's why I also can take the great sacrifice of putting WD-40 down, because the magnet will just catch around on the metal parts of the spark plug. Now let's try. Alright, we got the spark plug pipe on the ratchet. Gonna try number 1. And since it is a magnet inside, it makes it a lot more difficult to align perfectly, but oh well, damn, those were pretty easy to take off. What? I didn't think they would be that easy to take off. Wow, oily. Focus. I don't know. For some reason I think they look okay. Let's take a look. Hold on. So this is the old one, the one I just took out. These are the new ones. Notice the difference? The iode, or whatever it's called, has been worn down, so definitely was time to service them. The amount of oil, the amount of oil on the threads and on the part that is inside the cylinder makes me a bit worried, but I do know the engine has problems with oil. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of soot. Definitely it has to do because the engine does run very rich. Jesus, it is quite a rich running car. Has been all the years I owned it. And that's why I'm gonna actually try to do the mass airflow sensor cleaning, because I think that's gonna help a lot. Maybe do actually the injectors one day, but I just use the STP injector cleaning products. Works like a charm. So, but yeah, definitely time to swap them. So 40,000, but they're definitely good emergency plugs. So I'm gonna keep them in the car in case something wrong happens. Let's get the other ones. Man, all of these are really loose down here, or not exactly loose, but they are not hard to take off. This one, although, was a bit harder. There you go. Let's just make sure everyone is loose. Perfect. Awesome. This is great. This has to mean that something's wrong is gonna happen in the later parts of this service on the car. But you never know. Yeah, oily. Really oily for some reason. Don't like it, or maybe it's soot, I'm not sure. Not really sure. Man, doing this with one hand and having no sort of like tripod or something is really difficult. There. Alright. The one thing I do love about Saabs, because I have only owned this car in my life, I really just love how easy it is to get to a lot of things in the car. Wow. Focus. Yep, they definitely have done 40,000. Definitely have. Man. Bit dirty down there, actually. You might have to take some brake clean and just spray down there. Yeah. By the way, perfect tripod stand. No, it's not holding the bonnet. Yeah, that went really well. Wow. I didn't think that at all. Yeah, let me just place these back in the new ones cartons and prepare for cleaning. All right. The brake cleaner I had was not as effective because I think it's a bit old, a 1 year old can. So, but I have sprayed some now, so I'm just gonna try to clean down in the threads just to see if we can get anything out there. Man, no, you don't want to work today. Piece of shit. Okay, after a trial of doing some thorough cleaning, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Done my best. It hasn't been done like that before. It is now time to install the new plugs, and we have to be careful because they are actually a tightening torque to them. So for the NGKs, they are a 25 to 30 Newton meter. So yeah, don't over tighten them, because if you over tighten them, this might be a chance you're gonna break them in half, or you're never gonna get them out again. And you don't want to have to send off your engine block or top part of the engine block to a specialist to get them out in the future. So yeah, be careful. Do not over tighten them. If you do not have a torque wrench, either try to ask some of your neighbors if they have a one to lend, or simply just try to get snug, but no more. Snug and maybe a little 15 degrees further. That's all. You only need the gasket, the washer here, to get crushed and make it tight, and that's all. These are not wheel studs or wheel bolts, so be careful. Alright, just gonna prepare something and we're gonna start. Alright, I set my torque ratchet to, wow, that was really difficult to read. Holy, there. It was between 25 to 30, so I decided to do 27.5 Newton meters. But before we just attach it, go all bunkers out, we're gonna manually thread it in. So then again, this spark plug pipe has a magnet in it, so I can just carefree insert it inside. Make sure there's no shadow, and just carefully thread it in. I can no longer fasten it. There. Now we're gonna take the torque meter. Hold on a sec. Now attach on. We're going to there, and we are going to actually hold on that part, and we're going to move until it makes a click, no further. So let me try to make it possible for you guys to see what I'm doing. Hold on. Okay, you won't be able to see down there, but I just want to show the way you're going to hold it, because with such force, if you just hold right here, it's not going to be right, it's not going to be straight. So down, one arm here, there. That sound is more or less the automatic shut off. You are not supposed to put any more force. So that's one's tight. Let's do the rest. You're probably not gonna see a lot, but you don't have to. Again, while holding just the extension with the pipe, I'm just gonna insert it, thread it to a no longer can with my fingers, screw it on, and then put on the top meter. And the reason we're doing this manually is because we don't want to cross thread or put any extreme force on the threads. These engine blocks are more or less like 22 years old now, especially mine. They don't need any more stress on them. Now, I can no longer put any more force on it. It's time to use the torque meter. Awesome. I'm just gonna finish the last one without recording, so you don't have to watch all three of them. And before I actually thread on the last one, I need to point out something. The distance between the, well, I don't exactly what it's called, but the distance between this small part, the iode I believe it's called, and the both thing, they are actually supposed to be up to a specific distance, like 1.5 millimeters, for example. I will link to a video on how to check those, because there's actually tools they use to check. Awesome. If you're really worried on how you're gonna place it back, there's only just one way. The connector has to go with the connector. The text literally just says direct ignition to you. And you have to first connect on the connector, just add them on together, and then more like a hinge, place it down like such. I'm gonna try to show it to you now. Okay. Getting the connector back on is the easiest part, but a lot easier to get on because you just simply press, and the red part will follow along because it is on a rail, and then you just press at last and it's locked. Like such. So press a little bit, and there. Now it's on. Hopefully you can see that. And then I just carefully make sure that I'm hitting all the spark plugs down there. And then press down. Perfect. Just gonna add the screws, and we're done with the spark plugs. Do not want to over tighten them, so I still use the lowest strength on my drill. Okay, we are now taking off the 4 bolts, taking off the cassette, remove the cassette, then sprayed some WD-40 down in the threads, taking out the spark plugs, old ones, inserted new ones, tighten them to 25 or between 25 and 30 Newton meter, Do not know what it is in standard or American units. You Freedom guys have to do it on your own, sadly. And then simply reconnect and place it like a hinge downboard, making sure the plunges of the coils are inserting over the spark plugs. Let's try to start the car. Wow, this car is dirty. But we're gonna have to clean it afterwards by the end of the video. Okay. Alright. That worked. Let's try again. Awesome. I do also have an exhaust leak right now. We're gonna have to fix that later. Awesome. Did stumble at the start. I just think it has to do with the fact we replaced the spark plugs and the car has to relearn or do some small parts. Awesome. Let's go on to the mass airflow sensor. Alright, so when it comes to doing the mass airflow sensor, two products. A new air filter, just mandatory. Don't try to use a used one. Well, do what you will, but I highly recommend doing the air filter. I haven't done this year yet, so perfect time for me to just do them both. And then for the mass airflow sensor, which is placed right here, we're gonna actually have to disassemble some parts. You're going to need a specific mass airflow sensor cleaning product. Don't need to have CRC, but do not use brake clean. Do not use some kind of electronic points cleaner. Mass airflow sensor cleaner. There are instructions on the back. I'm going to read really carefully 3 times. But the essential parts are you're going to have to, as again, disassemble some parts. Take the mass airflow sensor off the airbox and the hose to the, I think it's the turbo or somewhere else, and going to have some distance. You're not going to spray directly on. You're going to have a 10 to 15 centimeters distance spray, and carefully just spray little by little on the mass airflow sensor. Then you're going to let it dry out, not dry clean. You're going to let it dry out by itself in the air. Do not want to use it before, not after, or any earlier. Just let it become dry by itself. It is as you can picture here, is a really fine electronic sensor. So the slightest movement can damage it. I have to remove or loosen up the hose clamp. You can clearly see I've done it before. If you have the time, buy a new one of the hose clamps, reattach it, and you're also gonna have to loosen up right here. Simply just pull off. Recommend just actually taking this one first, then undoing all the screws I'm gonna show on the right side here. Take it apart, take that one by itself, and then we have to loosen this part from the plastic case. You can just start by doing this by simply pulling this off the hook that's on the airbox. And I'm going to realign the light so you can see a lot better. Okay, so when it comes to the airbox, some of the screws are a bit hidden, while others are really easy to get to. But the most important thing to mention is the screws are all attached to the top part, the cover of the box, so you won't be able to pull them all the way out. Now, they require a T25 bit. I recommend using a screwdriver or something that doesn't have a lot of attachments, because I have a lot of histories from myself using a bit on a drill, loosening up, and then the bit falls off the drill, and I no longer have that bit at all, and I start freaking out because what if it hits the serpentine belt or anything else? But yeah, so there are 1, 2, 3. There are 4 screws, and there's one just latch. the latch is hidden right there. You simply just take your finger. This is not the easiest part to film at all, by the way. And you're going to have to just feel your way down to a clamp, lift it up. That's one loose. Now, there are one screw here, one down there, the rusty part right there, one situated right there, and then a last one behind the connector, which you cannot truly see in the light. Wow, really difficult to show. Let's see. Right there, the rusty spot on the right behind the wire loom there. So, easiest thing to do first, or the most helpful part is to undo the latches on the wire loom. You have to press down on it and flip it to the side, which is really difficult sometimes, because again, you don't have the biggest amount of space. When you hear a click, you can lift it up. It's not easy to film this right here, but you just have to, again, press down on the top and try to flip it on the side part here. Then it will loosen up like such. I will show better when I have the latch all disconnected. Okay, so having now disconnected the really difficult part to see on the car, that clamp right there, there is still a connector, just like on the direct edition cassette we have to pull out, but it's a lot easier to do now if you just take off the hose clamps or loosen them and now do the screws, and as well just pull it off. A lot easier to do when you have more space, more wiggle room rather. Alright, those are now loose. You can see I can clearly lift the cover. Now it's time to just loosen up the hose clamp. Simply just take a flathead and unscrew. And now that one has been loosened, just have to give it a little bit of a pull so we can get off the metal. And there we are. There. Now we're just gonna have to disconnect the connector, which is right here. And that's the same principle as the cassette. You can use a screwdriver into that small hole right there and just wiggle it out. Now that one really easy, probably because there's a lot of wetness right here. And then again, you take the red part, you drive it out, and then you can at the same time carefully lift up from the base of the connector. And like such, we have the top part of the air filter box that also has the mass airflow sensor attached to. And this is the air filter, by the way. If you want to know, you can also just quite easily just change it. It's a little bit dirty, but not a lot actually. Wow. I really didn't drive this car a lot previous year in 2024. If you want to take off the bottom part of the air filter, there are simply just like a couple of connectors right there, and also one up here that holds the part, and it is connected with a pipe down to the lowest part of the airbox intake or air intake. But yeah, let's get on back to the mass airflow sensor. And taking off the rubber hose from the airbox into the engine is just as straight as the one connected to the engine. It's just a simple hose band. You can tighten it and then just try to take it off carefully. And I am just supposed to, yeah, I have to twist it a little bit because it has been stuck on a while. And you notice on the hose itself, it has a cutout. That's factory. It goes on more or less just one way. There's a key right here on the mass airflow sensor. And by the way, we're getting close to the part right now. So yeah, let's go. Let's get on. As you can see, there are two mounting screws on diagonal down here and up here. These probably haven't been taken off in multiple years, so be cautious, be careful, because although you might be able to get a second-hand airbox, you don't want to make it more expensive for yourself. So it is once again a T25 Torx 25, just like the airbox itself is, and I just simply place it in and carefully loosen, and I retighten, loosen, retighten, back and forth to both get some of the old, I don't know, dirt and dust out, but also just to make sure I don't, you know, cross thread it or damage it at all. So then again, simply just and by the way, these screws, they are not locked to the housing, so be careful, especially working around the engine compartment. You might end up losing it down in the car. I shall place it in the most stupid way ever, right here. We did try to take off the screws over here and remove the mass airflow sensor from the body of the air filter box, but I did find out that it is possible, it's supposed to do, but there's a gasket around on the inside part that seals, completely seals, so there's no leakage with air leakage, and I don't have the gasket. I don't want to take a chance with it, so I simply just reattach the bracket and screws on, tighten it. But it's possible. You're supposed to just take a flathead or something, just pry little by little all around, and eventually pull it out. Process is where we need to do the cleaning. And so right here, those small lines are the mass airflow sensors. These are the parts you don't want to touch with the fingers or anything else. These are really sensitive. These are the reason. These are the things that measures air. Okay, so the instructions were that I am supposed to, as we have already done, disassemble and actually build out the sensors. So taking it further out, but I'm gonna take my chance right here as it is. And then we are going to, of course, have to disconnect everything from it and spray liberally on the messaging unit, allow to dry completely. So I also read that you're supposed to not stand right close out here, but have a distance from 10 to 15 centimeters from it. So let's try. I do have a secondary mass airflow sensor somewhere, so if this fails, I do have a backup. All right. I just got the cleaner all on my car. Let's see if I can clean it up before it ruins everything. Because I do believe it is bad for your paint. Or maybe just the greatest cleaner of all time. Let's take a look. So stand away from the car. Well, it probably is getting cleaner. I don't see it though, probably because it's so small. Yeah, now we're just gonna let it dry. I think an hour. Check back by then. Yeah. Wow, I am impressed by the cleaning on the vent. Those small silver, like, I don't know what's it, resistors? It looks like resistors, but those are the sensors. They were brown when I started. You can see there's a little bit on the top right there. I tried to clean it twice now, and I let it dry it by itself for half an hour. And wow, those are nice. I think they're gonna do a great amount of help for the engine when it comes to fuel economy. I'm gonna just simply change the air filter, even though it doesn't seem that bad. I might as well just do it. It's a great practice to not week out, to at least do it once a year around the same time. You should also really just, when you are doing the air filter, clean out from inside here. But I don't have a vacuum cleaner ready right here, so I guess a quick wipe down with a cloth would work great. At least where the filter is straighted, so none of the dust actually is on the upper part where the mass air filter lays. But yeah, let's try to do this one-handed. New filter, same brand, clean as a whistle. Simply just place it down on the edge that is right here. That edge. The box, the cover lays on top in between. So yet again, move some of the wire looms out of the way and press it on top. There's no direction way other than the fact that this is up. There's no arrows or anything, I guess, for at least this filter. But yeah, now it's time to do the assemble. And this is, by the way, the latch I was talking about. It sits like such behind the massive flow sensor, and you take your thumb and you push up and it will unlock. If you did a good enough job and disconnected actually the whole mass effort sensor from the cover, you wouldn't have to reassemble. Take the mass effort sensor, insert it. There is an arrow on direction, so you can't do it exactly wrong. And then you take the bracket and the 2 screws and tighten them. Hand tighten, snug. We are then going to reattach the hose. Life easier for me, I'm gonna tighten the clamp, but make sure I'm able to reach it once I'm done assembling everything in the car. So with the band or the hose straight on, I'm just gonna simply retighten everything. As said, I just line it up so it's easier to reach. When the time comes, I'm gonna have to reassemble everything or disassemble. Snug. And that's all. We're gonna now first connect the electrical connector to the mass airflow sensor and then reattach the screws. And this is a tricky part because you can often miss when it comes to alignment in the holes. So then again, first the connector, which is a lot easier to do when you have both hands. So we'll do that off the video. Okay, I got it attached. It's a bit finicky. Just make sure the wire is still able to be placed in its holders. The wire loom, place the air filter cover in, and then you can insert the hose over the turbo area. And then when trying to perfectly align the screws in their hole, I simply just, because once you place the cover, more or less most of the screws are out of place, so I take some snippers and place them onto. If I could just give it some light first, I take a tool and I just pull them up and then reinsert them down in the correct place. Now I can start screwing them on. I always do in a crisscross like pattern. The latch, which is not as good to which is really difficult to film. The the latch right there, and we hook it on, which is a lot easier to do with my dominant hand. Perfect. Now it's just these difficult hose or wire loom holders again, but they're a lot easier to reattaching in difference to disassemble. So yeah, you line them up, you lift them up, you pull the wire loom inside, and you press till you hear a click, which may take some time or persuasion. And the last thing you have to just push back on place is this connector right here onto that one. There you go. By the way, if you ever curious about how you're gonna connect it right here, there is a cutout on the hose and there is a mark on the metal part. So now everything is either serviced or have been redone. Let's cross our fingers and hope that it didn't damage the mass surface sensor or anything else. Let's take a look. Well, it started. Awesome. I think that's all for today. At least when it comes to servicing. Let's go and wash the car. Let's do some cleaning. It's sunny outside. So yeah, let's go do that. Alright, car started up. Let's get going. Now, time to dry. Important to do, or else you're gonna get streaks all over your car. This is truly one of the greatest spots that I know of. I think I'm gonna take some pictures with my camera for fun of it.
I'm chillin'